And our next guest stepping out from behind the political scenes to run for mayor of New York City, and she's also making history in the process.
My name is Maya Wiley, and I'm running for mayor because I believe in this city. It is now time to build the New York of the future. A New York with a smart budget that's also a moral budget. A New York where healthcare is a right, where it's easier to get a job than a gun. A New York where housing is affordable to all because we commit to development without displacement. I am not a conventional candidate.
Civil rights attorney Maya Wiley facing an uphill battle, and she joins us live this morning to explain why now and why her. Good morning to you, Maya. Thank you so much for making the time this morning. Do appreciate it.
Good morning, and it's a pleasure to be with you.
So, Maya, you know, we just heard you say you've been mulling this decision for several years. You said it yourself that you are a political newcomer, a political outsider. Is that what New York City needs at this point in time?
I am not a conventional candidate, and it is absolutely what New York needs at this time. Look, I have spent 30 years as a civil rights lawyer, as a person who has fought for full funding for public education, who's fought for access to health care, who's fought to make sure there's food on every table that's healthy, who's fought to make sure that every home has broadband so that when of a crisis like COVID, our kids can get online. These are things that have been a mission for me for many, many years, and that I've been so grateful to work on from the not-for-profit advocacy world, lobbying DC, and also from city government.
Right.
Seeing and knowing firsthand how it gets done and what gets in the way. What makes me different is what makes me the right person for this moment, which is that I actually know what transformation means and looks like, but I also know how to listen and talk to people and bring them to the table so that we're solving it together,
Right.
not just dictating from on high.
And so let's talk about this moment in time, right? This moment in time is so unique and so different than this city has ever faced. The economy is in shambles because of COVID. Activists demanding NYPD reforms. Homelessness, as you saw, and I saw you outside the Lucerne Hotel, is at an all-time high. So is crime. How will you be addressing so many of these issues on day one?
You know, day one starts with economic recovery. Our people need jobs. We have had far too many, literally close to 1 million, thrown out of work because of COVID. And this is a city that is sitting on resources. Now, do we have a $9 billion deficit? Yes, we do. But we also have a capital construction budget. We have money we have and must spend, and we can spend it in a way that says we're going to have a 22nd century public transportation system. We can spend it in a way that says we're going to ensure that our communities that are in flood zones are protected from climate change, but in a way that creates jobs for those communities. There's much, much more we can do, and we have to engage our business leaders. We have to engage our academics. We have to engage our advocates, and we have to know and understand that we all have to come together and figure out what we can put on the table to make sure everyone has a seat at it.
Yeah, and I want to talk about police reform for a second, because I think that's on the forefront of so many people's minds right now, right? And you have a unique perspective, a unique position, because you led the Civilian Complaint Review Board, which recommended charges against Officer Daniel Pantaleo in the Eric Garner case, which so many followed. We know it took 5 years for the NYPD to fire Pantaleo. As mayor, seeing what's happening since then, seeing what's happening on the streets, right? How would you address police misconduct, aggressive tactics? Do you even believe that there are aggressive tactics right now in what we've seen in recent months?
Look, we have seen very aggressive tactics when it comes to certain kinds of demonstrations in some communities, and it is absolutely unacceptable. And what we have to change is where we have strong civilian oversight. We can't just wait for civilian oversight after someone has been choked to death, after someone has been beaten with a baton, after a police vehicle has been rammed into a crowd. We have to have police understanding and knowing what we, the people, believe the priorities of policing to be, and also to be sure that that accountability means that they are problem solving, not problem creating. And let's be clear, police don't like being called for things that don't require a badge and a gun. That's not what they signed up for the force. We have far too many mental health crises that result in 911 calls to the police department, when really we should have a mental health flying squad of professionals who know how to take care of someone who is ill. That's something that I think we should all be able to get behind, but it also puts the public back in public safety, and that is what I would do.
All right. Now, you served also as Mayor de Blasio's legal counsel for 2 years, but you criticized his leadership during your announcement yesterday. And I know we're running out of time here, so I want to get to this. What grade would you give Mayor de Blasio for his leadership, especially during the pandemic? Because some people might say, okay, well, Maya Wiley worked for the mayor for 2 years. How is she different than him? I mean, you laid out some of it right now, but what grade would you give the mayor?
Well, I don't like grading out of school. And I know that it is an extremely tough job at an extremely tough time, and it's unprecedented. But I have to give the mayor a low grade, because the reality is we should have closed schools sooner. We should have had much greater participation well before this on how to reopen schools and how to reopen them safely and when to do so. And we absolutely should have ensured that all the tough decisions that had to be made were made clearly to residents, including the principles underneath them and why they were central to public health, so that we stood with leaders, not watching, as we saw communities confused or, in recent news, behaving completely inappropriately in the streets. But that's about partnership with communities about what we need and how we need to do it. And that's what we need in a mayor.
Maya Wiley, I think we're going to be speaking to you a lot over the course of this race in 2021. It's getting to be a crowded field at that. So we have a lot to talk about over the next year and a half, really, about taxes and so many other things. I do want to end on a light note, though, for people who are getting to know you. You know, you're running for mayor of New York City. What's your favorite pizza shop?
That's easy. San Remo. That's my neighborhood shop.
Boom.
It's been my neighborhood shop for 2 decades. It has been here even before I moved to the community, and that's what we need. Our neighborhood mom and pop shops that have been with us through thick and thin, that fed my kids in elementary school and fed them yesterday.
Very good. Maya Wiley, thank you for making the time this morning.
Thank you.